Hello, and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. We talk animated shows and movies here, especially Miraculous Ladybug and the Owl House. But today, we are talking about the Disney Channel show Amphibia, which just had its finale as of this recording less than 24 hours ago. I'm your host, Alex Bonilla, and today I'm joined by Aly Martin.
Hello.
And Michelle Anderer.
Hey.
If you are interested in hearing our previous Amphibia discussions, we've actually been doing that on our own for Season 3 on the Amphibia YouTube channel, if you want to go find that, Amvidia.
Thank you for spelling it.
It's important. But since this is the finale, we've been given the opportunity to do it here on the Overly Animated feed as well. So we hope that anybody who's listening has enjoyed, along with us, all of the stuff that's happened in Amphibia. And there is a lot to cover, a lot to recover from emotionally and mentally in a lot of ways.
In process.
And just a lot of different topics and themes to cover in the aftermath of All In, which was, the hardest thing, and All In, which were the main big finale episodes that have come out in the past couple of weeks. So I suppose that given there's so much to talk about, we'll begin with general thoughts before diving into more specific themes. So I guess, Michelle, we'll go to you first. What are your, again, we've had less than a day to recover from this, but what are your general feelings, thoughts, things about the ending you liked or favorite moments? What's your immediate feelings right now?
I'll start with general thoughts. I'll be honest, I was very sad yesterday after this aired. And that's not because I don't think it's a fitting ending. I think it's very satisfying, but it is very bittersweet that Anne is, as far as we know, presumably at this point, never going to see the planters again, never going to go to Amphibia again. And she's made peace with that. And Sprig has made peace with this. And everyone's just like, the 10-year time skip really got to me. And just, oh, man. It's so good, though, because I feel like that says so much about the point of, that friendship and that growth experience. And things are always changing, and people don't stay in your life forever, but they still left a very strong impression, and they still matter so much to you, and that won't change. And it's just part of me wants to be sad, but part of me also knows that this was the ending that made sense and felt right, so I guess it's just kind of balancing those dueling emotions. I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna feel less sad in a week than I do right now. But I do still feel really sad when Anne was walking to the portal and she had that really intense I think I wrote in the outline, it was the swirl hug animation because I didn't know what else to call it. But they lovingly animate them hugging from a 360 angle. And I mean, then she lets go of his hand, and it's just such a big deal that really got to me. But I mean, it seems like they're both doing pretty great on their own, and they both impacted each other's lives in this very strong, profound way. And I love that for them. And I love that for the other two girls. I love that for all, Grimes and, the canon Olivia. That was fantastic. So, I mean, it was a good thing. I'm sad that it's over. But also it had to end sometime, and ending this way feels really very satisfying. And like I said, in a week I'll probably be less sad than I am right now, but I'm pretty sad right now. This is fresh.
That's a good summation. I think all of us are going to have to be, I'm not going to speak for Aly, but I am also in a point of trying to balance my feelings between happy with how it ended and sad that it ended because I've been enjoying this so much. But before I go deeper, Aly, where are your emotions at right now?
In the devastating pit of despair, honestly. I mean, very
tell us more
as y'all, because we were all there. It was so well done and tugged at all of the best strings. It was everything. It was action packed, beautiful, emotional, and also very what's the word? Very cathartic to see a story about change told in the way that it was, and and the way that it did. Obviously, there's, we're very sad that Anne and Sprig have not been in contact, and like that she may never go back to Amphibia again, but it really fits the story. Like I also love that they've gone into like the things in the fields that they're in because of each other. Like Anne is into her what is the term?
Her herpetologist. She is studying amphibians and snakes.
Because of Sprig. And Sprig is an adventurer because of Anne, and they can't see each other. Like, it genuinely pains me that it's implied that they can't see each other again, but it's also implied that, like, a portal can be made, so, whatever. My general thoughts are tears, emotions, very bittersweet, like Michelle said, but it felt very natural in a way that, like, demonstrates the show's heart and, like, the ultimate theme that change is the hardest thing. It's not saying Worcestershire, it's actually saying goodbye. But change is good. It's necessary. Like Leaf also said, I think. Yeah, Leaf said it and said it. It's very important and it's realistic. We could definitely get into also the trio's relationship. I'm definitely going to get into it because I have a lot of thoughts. But I think it's done very well, pretty much perfectly. And my hot take that I've also been seeing floating around the internet is that it has the most satisfying ending and goodbye since Gravity Falls. That's my hot take. I love it. I want to rip my hair out and stab my eyeballs because I will never watch another new episode of Amphibia again, at least not for a while. But it, like, in the wise words of Matt Braley this morning on Twitter, don't puke because it's over, puke because it happened.
That was one of the many iconic things he was churning out in the last 24 hours. I agree.
And nerds are real.
Nerds are real! So, okay, everyone, this is very important.
Yeah, we're going to cover this in the general thought section. Sure.
The term nerds like hours before Matt canonized it into our collective being. So props to Aly for thinking of nerds.
Yes, thank you. And also props to just everyone who worked on this show. Thank you. If you're listening, I hope you are, and I also hope you're not because I'm really emotional, but thank you for everything you did. Also, you fan artists are insane. I'm like, it like Alex has said, it hasn't even been 24 hours and there's so much amazing works out there already. I want to die. Back to you.
Just for a quick clarification, Snurd is the snail bird offspring of Bessie the snail and Joe Sparrow the sparrow.
We should also point out, if you have not seen, if you haven't seen the last 5 Amphibia episodes, get away from this page and go watch it and come back.
I'll just say the Snurd was 5 seconds.
Snurds are important.
The Joe Sparrow Bessie slow burn on your own time. It's worth it.
Snurds are important lore for Amphibia now. It's canon.
So I will say that, in terms of my emotions, my previous bar for reaction to the show ending was Steven Universe, because that was the show that was most important to me for a long time, and I remember the joy and pain of that ending. But last night, watching the Amphibia finale, I was making a lot of noises, just taking it all in. And I was rewatching it this morning too, and I was even more in pain and in joy. This honestly got the biggest reaction out of any ending that I've watched in my relatively short time watching animation. So this has been a very meaningful journey, and rewatching the past couple of episodes in the lead up to this definitely hammered home how much they wanted you to get the theme of accepting change and rolling with it and accepting that thing. Even if you are happy with how things are right now, you can't expect that to hold forever, and to be prepared and ready for when you have to let go. So, and that is, personally speaking, that is a theme that really hits hard for me. And so,
me as well.
Watching Anne, go through those, slowly get to that point, as well as everyone around her, right? It felt so meaningful, so well done, and so effective, and so it's it definitely nails the bittersweetness and melancholy that I think they were going for. And on top of the emotions, like to also just to say, like it's a very beautiful finale in terms of animation. Lots of good
Oh yes.
action sequences that I'm sure we'll talk about here in The Hardest Thing and All In. All these episodes leading up, like they really put their full effort into giving Amphibia as much life as possible in that sense. But yeah, and also like just at the same time, like watching Amphibia live, like the swerves that were happening too, like things that were unexpected, but like it somehow fit with the overall theme and feeling of the story. It like helped all that also kind of helped to like get reaction out of me, like how did we end up here? But also cool, like
yeah, but also cool. This is unexpected.
Yeah, so like that like was an added like emotion that I was working through. So yeah, the Amphibia finale was incredible, and I am I'm happy to talk about it more with you too. So I suppose we can begin talking a little bit about the overall theme of change in terms of Aly mentioned the relationship with the trio, because this show has always had Anne as the main character, but over the course of the show, we've put a lot slowly growing more focus on Anne's connection to Sasha and Marcy. And in this finale, we end up in an interesting place, right, where we rescue Marcy from her possession from by the core. But then we have the epilogue where they have sort of drifted apart. They still keep in touch, but they're not really in the same friend groups anymore. But they come. We have this like final shot of them meeting up with Anne again, and then at the extended credits, the shot of them recreating the photo of the BFF photo that we've seen throughout the entire series. Aly, I don't know, is there like something specific that you really wanted to touch on in this part of the finale?
In the flash forward you're talking about, yes?
Yeah.
So I've been seeing the take online that people are not understanding or they're disliking the fact that like Sasha, Anne, and Marcy drift apart. And like, I mean, the theme of maybe not the whole show, but the theme of certainly the ending is that the hardest thing is saying goodbye. And I'm not going to lie, it did hurt to hear that they like drifted apart in high school and after, but it's very realistic to how relationships work, even in spite of, and also at the same time, because of shared trauma. Like, I'm first of all convinced that definitely played a part. Like, sure, they like could talk about it together and work through it together, but they also need time to themselves to figure out, process their emotions and everything. And I think something that people aren't getting is that the fact that they're drifting apart doesn't weaken their bond, but that it proves it, because they can come together and pick up where like they like pick up as they never left off, or sorry, pick up as if nothing changed.
They pick up where they left off. Yeah,
the fact that they were able to let life drift them apart and like change them, and they were at peace with it, and they were able to like accept the change and not forget about what happened or completely close off each other. Even after a lot of time has passed, they can just pick up where they left off. And I like personally, I have friends that I don't speak to for like months, weeks, years at a time, but like we could one of us would send a message, and like then we're reminded that we've always been connected. And I think the ending really shows that. It's like if you have a strong bond with somebody, if you want it to stay that way, you don't have to like constantly keep in touch. Like even at the end, like Sasha asks Marcy about her webcomic and says she's read some chapters. Like it shows that you can still care about people without being there all the time, 24/7, or talking to them all the time. And I really like the fact that they grew apart and gained new experiences before reconnecting with new skills and like new knowledge that will help them further grow their relationships. I don't know. I think it was done masterfully well. And I understand that people are upset about it, but I think that something's missing if you think that they're not like friends or proper friends or whatever. It's very realistic to real relationships, and I really appreciate that. That's my rant for now.
I think that all makes complete sense, Aly. I agree.
I would say one in the rewatch, like knowing like where the friend group ends up in all in when Marcy is coming to, like she's recovering from being possessed. like she has the line, right, like she was explaining herself, like why she did it. Like, I was afraid we weren't together, we wouldn't be friends
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And the kind of recognizes, like, yeah, that's gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
we're not gonna be together forever. But then, like, it's a line that has similar energy to other things that Anne has said, where nothing can break the bond we share because nothing can take away the memories of the time we spent together. So that it's kind of like in that previous episode, it's like setting up, like, the time that we had is part of the friendship. Us not, like, being always in contact, that doesn't
Doesn't
sever
take
it
away the
necessarily,
past.
right?
Yeah.
Like that like, you take the whole bulk of your entire experience together as the meaningful value in it. And so I thought it was interesting that that's one thing that's, like, set up earlier. It's like, yeah, like, coming to terms with the fact that, like, they know that they're gonna drift apart after this. And, like, it makes sense because, like, yeah, like, even if you they do work in, like, a setting, and convincing Sasha to forgive Marcy for, like, these mistakes. But at the same time, like, at the end of the day, that Marcy did this kind of weird thing. Like, that's gotta affect the dynamic a little bit, at least in the immediate. So, like, preparing for something like that, but also recognizing that doesn't have to totally sever it. Like, that feels very close to real life, and, like,
Yeah.
managing how friendships ebb and flow sometimes.
And even if you don't I feel like it kind of connects to Anne's relationship with Sprig, even because they can't talk to each other. And like you mentioned, her saying to Marcy that nothing's gonna break the bond we share because of our memories. Like, even if Sprig and Anne can't see each other or they never contact each other, they're gonna be such a huge part of each other's lives forever, no matter what. Like, because they want them to stay that way. It's all about what you do, like how, I don't know. It's all about personally what you choose to do with your past experiences.
Yeah, and the impact, simply, right? Like, the impact they've had on each other's lives will last forever, even if they're not physically there.
Yeah. But I still want them to text each other.
That's what I'm saying. As soon as she gave Sprig that phone, I'm like, okay, so they can text now, maybe.
I wish it worked that way. I really wish it worked that way.
I'm hoping.
We will touch on Spranne in a little bit, but just with Anne, Sasha, and Marcy. I suppose one question I did want to throw out to all, given the fact that a lot of time in the show was spent on Anne and Sasha repairing their bond, like, that they had, especially in Reunion, they were, like, totally separated. And, like, a big piece, especially with, like, Sasha in season 3, is, like, trying to gain Anne's trust back. Do you think that ends up fitting smoothly with where the friendship ends up, or does it feel disparate, or like conflict in how much time was given to that in the season versus where they end up?
I don't know, Michelle, you go first.
So you're asking, was it like, did it feel satisfying, or did it feel like strange that
Yeah.
they weren't closer? No, I think it makes sense. I mean, based on what we learned about in that really, like, gut punch sleepover flashback with Marcy, and how Sasha and Anne fell asleep, I mean, it seems like maybe Anne and Sasha were in some ways closer, even though it seems like Anne and Marcy also, like, they knew each other first, and then Sasha came later, and she might even be a little bit older than them. I do think Anne and Sasha have a lot in common, and they have their own they had their own messy relationship dynamic. But I think maybe they were closer in some ways, and maybe that's why the show I don't know, but it was kind of prioritizing their relationship, and spent so much time seeing them go through these motions of Anne, pushing back, and them being kind of enemies, and then Sasha regretting that, and then, like, deciding, oh, I'm gonna be sneaky, and then, like, oh wait, no, that's bad, no, I want to be someone who deserves you, and then them being on the same side and learning and growing together. I mean, I think it makes sense that, that trio is, like, the most formative relationship those three have had, Anne has Sprig, which is a whole separate thing, and that's also a formative relationship. But like in terms of longevity, Sasha's like one of her two best friends ever at that point. So I think it's satisfying anyway to just see them work through that stuff by the end of the show, even if they're not necessarily as close when they're 23 and when they're in high school. And like I've been thinking about it when you guys were talking about just like how the trio stuff kind of shook down after they all went back to Earth. And I think like maybe it was more important for them than the average people to grow apart, just because the trauma could bind them, but maybe that would be binding them for the wrong reasons, right? Like maybe it's extra important that they move on to other things just because they are in this really like out of the ordinary situation where they they have this crazy like history with these two other people, and that's like that shouldn't hold them back from living other parts of their lives and experiencing new things that are kind of just theirs, or things they experience with other new friends. So I think it's totally fair. And I think, you know, if it wasn't for Anne and Sasha reconciling, I don't think Sasha would be able to be like preparing to be a child psychiatrist, you know?
God, no.
No way would she have the headspace and the perspective to pull something like that off and help other kids. And I think that is so fantastic for her. So I think regardless, it just comes back to that, you know, even if you aren't as close anymore, you left such a big impact at one point in time, and that's the thing you will ultimately carry with you, and that's, you know, that's the thing that will be permanent forever, even if you're not physically with the other person all the time. And I think that's really beautiful in a way.
I agree.
I think they still have that. Like Anne and Sasha have that, Anne and Marcy have that. Like they all still have that impact, and it's shaped them into who they are now.
Yeah, and like while Anne and Sasha get all the get a lot of focus in here, I do like that the finale makes time to get Marcy's viewpoint in on this, because we haven't really gotten a lot of her thoughts on the friend dynamic recently. So, like, you know, the point where they're in the fantasy world, and she has to come to terms with Anne and Sasha not really wanting what she wants in life, but also, you know, realizing that she went about the wrong way of forcing them to try going along with what she wanted out of the relationship. Like it's a short moment, but it was a very that was a gut punch moment to, like, you know, see her like realize in real time, like, oh, this is not right. This is not what I want out of this.
It explains
you do have to learn the hard way
lot.
sometimes.
Because, like, with Marcy, I feel like for so long, all we kind of knew was that, like, she was very nerdy and she liked DMing, and she was actually very good at being in Utopia, like, way better than Anne initially was being in Wartwood. But you didn't know that, you know, Anne and Sasha weren't really into that stuff, and that was a big part of their backstory. That was something that Marcy couldn't like, they would entertain that for a while for her sake, but they were never very excited about a lot of those interests she had. And that, I mean, once we finally got that information, I feel like it filled in a lot of the blanks I was having about Marcy's side of the story. And it is kind of sad, but also it makes sense. And it's like, it's not like they didn't love her and they didn't still care about her and she wasn't their good friend, because she was all those things. It's just like happened to be that, like, the two closest people in her life at that point weren't nerdy for the same thing she was in that capacity. And that probably was hard on her. But
stuff like that happens in real life all the time.
And especially for teens, right? Like, it's like you're just like learning like how to like balance like being friends with someone versus finding someone that's just obsessed with the same things, and even like figuring out the difference between those two. So, like, that's, like, another thing I like about, like, them reuniting as adults, right? Like, they'll have a lot more different perspectives on, like, what they actually want out of people close to them, you know? Like, versus when you're 13 years old, there's stuff, everything's just more dramatic, you know? So,
and you make a lot of stupid decisions when you're 13.
Yeah. Impulse things, yeah.
Do you guys think Marcy got grounded at the end?
I am, like, I kept expecting like low key to see Sasha's parents and Marcy's parents,
Me
and that
too.
never happened. And that's fine. But like, oh my god, like I don't think a letter was enough, Anne. I'm sorry, but I mean, like they were probably beside themselves with like, and I know there were a lot of headcanons that Marcy's parents like moved without her.
That's unbelievable. When I
That's
saw that, I was wondering if that would actually. There's no way. There's literally no way.
no, it could still be in play. Maybe that is part of the canon.
It does make you wonder what they were doing while they, like Sasha and Marcy's parents, what they were doing while they were gone, because we did see what Anne's parents were doing, like within their community and who was helping them, and it makes me worry about the other parents. But it's fine that we didn't get to see them. It's fine.
Yeah, while we're getting into a little more specifics, I did want to, one thing that stood out to me, like, of course, like, ideally they would have, like, mostly kept in touch. But there's one part where, like, Marcy is, like, asking if Sasha and Anne have hung out much. Is that not a thing that you would have asked, like, at some point in the 10 years?
That's, well, yeah, but then also, I mean, because after you get into high school and then go to college, it is, you have to get a schedule going of like, oh, I have this class and then I like have to do this part-time job and I'm only free on this day, and it's like, oh no, that clashes. But Sasha did say that they drifted apart in high school, right? Which is also understandable because like you both were saying, you find different people who maybe share the same interests, or if they don't, they like have different things that you want to like learn about, and they just surround themselves with different people. Like you don't, I mean, I maybe only have like 2 friends that I still keep in touch with when I was around that age, and we're in our 20s now. So like it happens, you drift apart, but you can come back together. I'm sorry, I forgot the question.
No, I was also assuming like Marcy probably moved very soon after they all got back to Earth, so.
And she was busy with learning in a new environment and making new friends and just moving. God, what a terrible experience.
My question was just that, like, if Marcy and Sasha have at least talked in that time, then wouldn't it have come up that Anne and Sasha had drifted apart at some point in those conversations? But,
I was assuming it was like an impromptu, like, oh, it's 10 years. It's Anne's birthday. Maybe we should meet up again. Okay. And then, like, they didn't really say much else until they got in the car. And they was like, so.
But also, I think Marcy has a thing where she's trying to respect people's boundaries and not, like, try to be too nosy. Because, like, I'm just thinking back to, like, when she met Andrias and she asked if she could call him Dreas, and he was like, oh, that's too personal. And she was like, okay, I got to learn my boundaries. So maybe she is just very careful about that sort of thing. Like, I don't know. If I had, like, 2 friends who were like, we were in the same group, I don't know if I would ask after a long time if they kept in touch. I would just maybe assume, also because since it's assumed that they got together to plan this surprise for Anne, that maybe they talk about like, hey, what's she been up to? But also like, when was the last time y'all hung out? Like, did you go to karaoke without me? If so, I'm impressed. I think it's a little weird, but also not super unreasonable.
Okay.
I don't know.
Also, in this in the car ride, one of the 2 confirmed queer representation pieces is that Sasha has a bi sticker.
Yes!
That's confirmed by the meme of Sasha being revealed to be attracted to women has finally come to pass.
Thank goodness.
Thank God.
Well, one of the more
just the whiplash from crying about Anne and Sprig saying goodbye to screaming at that sticker. It was a lot of different emotions.
Well, at first it was screaming at how hot Sasha is.
I know,
yes,
be real.
she's hot.
Being grown up Sasha, it was like, hello, cut your hair, you have a jacket, okay.
She has the bi-bob, it's perfect.
Oh my gosh, she does have the bi-bob, you're right.
It's perfect.
It's like they knew.
I have to get my hair cut again. Thank you, Queen, for reminding me. Gotta keep that bob.
All their adult designs are great, but just Sasha stood out.
Yes.
Also, Matt confirming on Twitter that she's bi. I mean, it was like, it was very obvious, but I still appreciate him
nice to
pulling
hear
that.
it.
It was the king move. Checkmate.
And like the fact that people have been calling it since like mid season 3, so
forever.
Yes.
I don't even know if they were saying before. I just started hearing a lot in the middle of the season.
She wields 2 swords. I mean, it's not that far off. If any of the 3 was gonna be it, I'm not surprised it's her.
It was when Grime got her the second sword, and she went, "How did you know I wanted to dual wield?" I was like,
right, that wording.
Okay, I understood. It was too real.
Yeah. And yeah, Anne works at the aquarium of the Pacific. It's a
I'm not
real
over that.
place.
I still feel like
She, she
it's
na-
really good, but I'm wondering if she would have done something else because she's a good mediator. That's why I thought maybe she would be something like a psychiatrist like Sasha was, but I think this is also very fitting. I'm just surprised that she
yeah,
wouldn't use other skills that she had already.
yeah, like it's still an educational role.
It's true.
Like
This is
you're
true.
teaching other people about nature, and so like I can see the like this is the mature version of of what she spent her time in Amphibia doing. And yeah, just like a lot of cute Easter eggs they squeeze into here. Like there's a little Wartwood exhibit in the back, and
It's like the
Toad
whole
Tower.
It's
Get
everywhere. They
lost in
even have the
Amphibia.
Newtopia with the laser on top. It's insane.
Oh God, I need to go back for that
She
detail.
included that. And the 3 gemstones are on the wall. She's never gonna let them go, and I love it.
And of course, the biggest piece here is that the pink frog she's showing off is named
It's
Sprig.
new spring. You can never leave me.
New spring.
What happens when that frog dies? Does she has to name a new
That was
frog
my
Sprig?
thinking. Like,
No,
does
she
he have a
hated Sprig, but he is new Sprig.
does he have a new Ivy that he can procreate with? Because if they
Wow.
die, there's gonna be no way.
If that Sprig gets too old, does it become Hot Pop?
Yes,
Oh God!
It turns orange.
So, while we brought up Sprig, we can talk a little bit about Spranne
Oh, sweet
against the
Jesus.
world, because
Yes.
that is also a big piece of this finale. Other than Anne's relationship with the 2 other humans, Anne's relationship to Sprig has been a foundation of this show. So, in all in, there's like beginning to prep Sprig for the end. Hop Pop is like, you're not always going to be a part of her life. And he's just like,
He's
no.
like, what do you mean? What are you talking about, Hop Pop? What are you talking about? What?
We're going to do Monster of the Week stuff forever.
Yeah, we were just going home one day. That's crazy, Hop Pop.
But and then in the hardest thing, like he gets his like very short speech in space of you're my everything, which is such charged language.
It is literally the most charged language. I was losing my mind. Oh my
I'm still not
God.
over that line specifically.
And then when Anne is actually leaving Amphibia, Sprig is the one who gets the final goodbye, the final Spranne against the world, and as mentioned in our introduction, a swirly hug.
Swirly hug. That's the only way I can describe
it. Was so smooth.
Through 360-degree spin of them giving their final goodbyes. I don't know if there's Michelle, what are your feelings about seeing this come to a finality?
I talk about Spranne every season because it's my favorite part of the show. I feel like I need like a little more time to talk about everything, so I'll just like try to think about what I can say right now. I love that like after 3 seasons of Sprig like supporting Anne and helping her be her best version of herself, that like in the end when she left, like she like Aly was pointing out, like she inspired him to be an adventurer, and he's still like he'll look at her statue and he'll feel inspired to be the best version of his self. And like that is like that kind of like mutual empowerment of a friendship, I feel like is the best case scenario, and I'm so happy that they both have it. I get like the most upset about them not being able to hang out, because I do think that like despite the fact that like Anne's relationship with Marcy and Sasha is the most prolific, I do think like in the terms of Amphibia the show and the time she spent in that universe, Sprig is like her core. Not core. Her foundational relationship.
Her heart. Sprig is definitely her heart.
Yeah, Sprig is her heart, and they challenged themselves to be better people, and they got so much out of each other, and they were just so nice to see. And I feel like this is a part that's like not talked about a lot, probably because he's a frog and he's younger. But like I have been waiting so long for a like heterosexual question mark like boy girl main relationship where it's platonic and just super affirming and super nice, and nobody falls in love with each other. And you would be so surprised how often that literally never happens.
Would you be surprised? Would you, though? Because I'm not.
I keep hoping, though. So the fact that Spranne exists, I feel like, is such a testament to, like, I want more of that. I want boys and girls to be able to be friends without them falling in love and have it still be, like, the most important relationship ever, and to help them grow and change and have that be celebrated for what it is, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's insane that doesn't happen very often, but I feel like that's one of the things that super drew me to their relationship at the start, and it kept me invested throughout. And I feel like it's just so satisfying and it's so refreshing, and I'm really glad that we got that with them for this particular show. I think it was very well done.
Yeah, it's been a very sweet relationship to follow all the way through. Like we've seen them like gradually open up to each other over the course of the series. Obviously, Hopping Mall will always be a milestone in that, and to the point that like they mirror some of that in like the end of All In when they're talking to each other on the
I noticed
castle
that
balcony.
Framing. You better believe I noticed the similar framing.
So and like the fact that like in the epilogue, we'll talk a little bit more about the Amphibia side of the epilogue, but the like Sprig, looking up at Anne's statue as like the hero, and then thinking back like episode 1, like that's kind of how he saw her as like a hero, and like
this ugly hero.
Ugly,
there you go.
hero.
That's the line. But like in between all of that, like how close that they've gotten, how much they've relied on each other emotionally through this whole experience, and then having to see that end, and in the same way with Marcy and Sasha, like Anne like telling Sprig like our memories are gonna be so valuable, like that's gonna keep the friendship alive no matter what, even if we never see each other again. Like that just hurt. It hurt my heart, and it also is like but it is like it's true in a way. Like you gotta.
It's very true.
Like the valuing all the time you spent with someone, even if you know that it's very unlikely you'll never be able to again. But like that has so much value to the rest of your life, being able to like pull from that experience and know that you had that kind of love for someone, and like it's
That's the second half of what he says too. After he says "you're my everything," which is like literally, oh my god, I'm never gonna not think about that. The second thing he says is "you changed my life," like, and that's the point. Like they changed each other's lives, and that's what they're gonna carry forever.
You guys
now
are gonna make me cry again.
This is a very emotional episode.
So emotional.
Oh
no.
This seems like
it's okay, Aly.
It's okay. We can have this is a safe space.
My tissues are full.
If it helps at all for a little bit, we can talk about some of the happier stuff that the Amphibia.
We already talked about
I still consider this a happy ending. Like, I mean, ultimately.
Oh no, it is.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's like
it's just so emotional.
Okay, so the sillier side of this is the Amphibia epilogue, where we get a lot of old friends back together. We got Hop Pop running an avocado farm.
His girlfriend.
I can't believe that he only have one avocado seed. I guess he must have like split them up and done it. He must be making bank.
Oh
yeah,
it's the only good tasting fruit in Wartwood, I'm sure. So he's making all the money.
It's the only vegetable that doesn't try to kill them.
You're right, his vegetables.
Oh my god. Trying to kill him.
We up the other queer representation. We got Olivia.
Yeah. Okay, hang on. Question mark. Mayor and Toady. What is their deal? Okay, we know. We talked about this. Toady is in love with the mayor. He's been in love with the mayor the entire show. Does the mayor know yet? Or is he ambivalent somehow to Toadie's affections? Because they are there and they're prominent.
I think the mayor's ambivalent, and I think that
mayor, wake up.
And I think that Toady is still holding back. Otherwise, he would call him sweetheart in public, but he just hasn't gotten to that point yet.
Hello.
But for now, that's only Yunan and Olivia's territory. So. I was right before they said Olivia says "sweetheart" to you, and they're like talking about settling down. She's like, "I want to like live with you here in the swamp." Or it's ah.
Unit's got like the sexiest like lady shirt though. It's like a pirate shirt. Is working on her. That's what I'll say.
Yunan's underrated in all her outfits.
Yes,
she
agreed.
just works them very well. And you got Grime also hanging around with his one lost arm.
With his one arm.
Wait, the way you phrased that made it seem like he's just carrying around the arm that was.
I mean, Andrias is also hanging around with his one arm, right?
You would think that with their advanced technology, they would make themselves prosthetics, but I guess not.
Maybe they don't want them. Maybe they feel cooler without it. Maybe they like being lopsided.
Cool. They
do.
Lopsided. That's the thing. Balancing is hard.
Balancing is hard.
Andrias is still farming, and he's using Beryl's hammer as a cane, which I don't know how to feel about. But
we joked about when we all watched it live that the leaves in his beard are Anne's leaves that she left. Yeah, he's like, it's safe for her.
And he just stuffs them in his beard. Oh, I'll take these.
Souvenir. The time I almost killed the children.
The fact that the first really changed character we see was Polly was very happy. It made me very happy to see. She's so cute as a grown up.
She's the one we were really waiting for to change physically the most, anyway.
Yeah. Sprig just got longer hair. That's about.
Yeah, he does. He do need a haircut.
And we got the setup for if there's ever a spinoff like 5 years in the future, him and Ivy will be discovering some new land or something, and Sprague is busy documenting everything on Anne's phone. So we've got the easy setup there for if we ever want them to come back. Although it seems like it's going to be a while.
It makes me wonder, like,
future,
because we also have confirmation. I mean, it is pretty much confirmation that a portal can be made from Earth. Because
they know the music box song.
They know the music box song, and all they need is that and a big power source. And the thing is, Amphibia has apparently much more advanced technology than Earth does. So it stands to reason that they should be able to do it too, as long as they have the proper scientists. But also the fact that they're supposed to have more advanced technology, but Darcy is connected to Marcy through a cord that gets cut. How do you not have
that is so funny.
How do you not have wireless Bluetooth? Like, are you really that advanced if you ain't got Bluetooth?
You're right, though, Aly. All they need to do is pick up one of those like broken Frobos from the battle, save it, and use it as a power source. Like,
yes, probably even just one of those.
Go back to Amphibia in 10 years.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah, I did. It came out.
Hey, well, it's like there was a lady.
Wow, that's a deep cut.
Bada bing, hey. Honestly, I can't tell the difference. Bada bing. I'm sorry.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, one thing with I've been seeing this around, like why don't we bring the portal back? Like, what's stopping us? I do remember that initially with the power that they had, they could make a portal, but to a random spot in Amphibia. They couldn't control the location of it. So I guess the problem is, like, I mean, Amphibia is big, but like I don't necessarily know how big. Like is that enough of a stopper to be like, okay, it won't work? Or like, is Amphibia small enough that it wouldn't matter? That you could just like throw something through the portal and somebody would eventually find it?
It depends on how dangerous the land is.
Yeah, like it might be as big as like America. It's like kind of big, but you could get all the way around in a while by snail. Not that long. Maybe
snail.
Maybe a few months, but it wouldn't take that long.
So it is just a country, yes?
Oh, it's a world,
a continent,
and
so Sprague Ivy specifically says they discovered a new continent, which also
Amphibia is the world, yeah,
but also how in the world does an entire continent go undiscovered in the world? Like, where like the newts were like being colonizers, right? Like, how did they not?
Maybe there was a really big fog and no one went through it, and then suddenly one day it lifted, and you're like, oh hey, look at that over there. That looks
maybe the moon being gone changed the topography.
Well, yeah. That's another discussion. Like, I just blew up a moon and nothing happened.
No moon? Where moon? What happened? I don't know.
Where moon? What happened?
Anything else from? I mean, we did talk about the Snurds already up top, right?
Loggle's no longer buffed. I was shook.
Yeah.
He only got buffed for the war. I cannot believe this. I got so used to it. I wanted him to be buffed forever. But that's okay, Loggle. It's your choice. Your body, your choice.
You take as many cheat days as you need, Loggle. You deserve it. And of course, like they're all getting together for the unveiling of the Anne statue, which is just like really sweet to think about.
I really hope Sasha got a statue in Toad Tower,
and
Marcy got one in Newtopia. I really hope
I feel like they had to have.
They must have. It's not. I mean, it is kind of fair because Anne, like, obviously had the ultimate sacrifice, which we also really have to talk about. But I hope everybody got a statue.
Yeah, I was gonna talk a little bit about Andrias, but I guess we should probably talk about the Anne sacrifice.
Let's do that first, and we'll pivot to Andrias because Anne is.
So like the actual story of Amphibia is leading up to completing this prophecy, right? That like they need to activate their anime powers through the stones and stop the moon from crashing into Amphibia. Briefly, the anime sequence excellent, using the big no big deal like jazzier music.
Good.
It's just so good, but that's not enough. And so the Mother Ohm, voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, had warned us that Anne could use a special spell that would kill her by absorbing all three powers at once and stopping the moon. And Anne decides to do this after two sentences from Sprig to try to stop her, and Marcy and Sasha also like, are you sure about this? And at this point in her arc is like, I'm taking leadership. I'm a different person. I'm not going to take the easy path out. She decides to do this, and she dies. She becomes pale and cracked.
She crumbles away into dust in Sprig's arms. And I was just like, God. Of all the things I thought were happening today, this was the last thing on my mind, is killing the protagonist. But here we are.
Yeah.
She literally died.
And so we have that happen. We end up in this dream world for Anne. And we discover the existence of a deity by the name of the Guardian, and initially represented by an old computer, and later by Domino the cat, which is a lovely choice.
Yes,
it fits very well.
We've been calling in our group chat. We've been calling the initial cat version Domino 3, and then when they reveal their actual goblin self, that's Domino 4.
Domino 4, the ultimate domino.
I've also seen some people call the god Domino Infinity, which I also like.
It's not Infinity because it's passing its job on to Anne, though. So I don't know about that.
So yeah, this god, voiced by Charlene Yee, Ruby from Steven Universe, to Chloe from We Reverse, they have this discussion with Anne of giving up their job to Anne, and Anne basically gets to the point where it's like, I want to live my life, but maybe I'll do it when I'm done. And
I love that she's non-committal. She's like, maybe we will see.
Yeah. I can't believe she got a permanent life secure job offer at the age of 13. And she said, "No thanks, I'm a minor."
Yeah,
it's child labor laws.
And God is convinced by this, being like, "Yeah, you've convinced me that I was wrong about something. So I guess that means if you live longer, you'll be even cooler."
I like that idea. That's respect.
And so you'll come back when you're 91 years old. You'll take my job.
She goes,
I believe that's like death spoilers to be like, this is exactly how long I assume you're going to live. So
what
get
would
ready.
You do with that knowledge?
It's like being in Death Note, but you don't choose to know when you're going to die. You just are told by an omnipotent being.
In a nonchalant way.
And so Anne is returned to Earth. The explanation that is given is kind of quick, but basically it's a backup copy made by the Guardian just before Anne died. And the line, for all intents and purposes, you're the same Anne.
But you're not literally the same Anne.
So two questions. First of all, overall feelings on how this part of the story went. And I guess more specifically, does the Guardian coming in out of nowhere to save Anne make sense as an ending? Like, do you feel like it fits with the overall story? Aly, I don't know if you want to go first.
Well, to answer the second question, I think it fits more than it would for not most shows, but some that I can like think of off the top of my head. Like we were talking about in the server, it probably wouldn't work as well for something like the Owl House because the like lore of that one world versus like the demon realm versus the human realm is very established and like kind of implies that there's no like I guess higher power in the multiverse. But in this show, the multiverse kept being reestablished and like not built upon, but we kept learning more about it. So it was like kind of anything was open. Like the realm of possibilities was very, very much like anything could happen. So I think it works very well. And the fact that it was like tailored to like Anne's mind, like that's what I liked about it, is that it didn't feel like just the universe for everybody. It was like tailored to Anne, like the little house, all the pictures inside. It was like her home, or like the ideal home that she wanted based on her experiences and the people she loved. So it's kind of like it's a good representation of death and like a potential afterlife of like limbo. I liked it a lot. I think it's Deus Ex Machina always feel kind of silly to me, but here I think it worked. I don't know how to feel about the clone thing, but it, I mean, if it has all the same memories and experiences as Anne and it's just a different vessel, I think it counts. Like she's Anne. She's just in another body. It's kind of like a body swap. It's just permanent. So I think it makes sense. She'll be traumatized forever, I'm sure.
Yeah, I do think you said something like, well, that's going to be an existential nightmare.
Yeah.
Something like that. Michelle, how are you feeling about this?
I love the clone thing. I think the reason, oh man, I don't want to say like I'm happy Anne died, but I'm very satisfied with that choice narratively because I do think it allows like the weight of her decision when she makes it to still feel pretty serious,
Yes, like there are consequences to your actions.
She literally died because she wanted to make this choice, and that was terrifying, and she disintegrated and they animated it, and that was all really, really upsetting.
And then they went to commercial right after she died.
We'll be right back, and it's Spriggs there's more where that came from. That menu is gonna haunt me forever. But I mean, yeah, like the knowledge that like, yeah, she's basically the same, but she's not quite the same. I love that. I love that as something that, happens as a consequence for what she decided, because it is heavy. It's heavy knowing that. It's probably heavy for the copy Anne to know that she's a copy on some level, even though she still has all her memories. She's not the original, and that's going to be true forever too. And that's really cool. So, I mean, yeah, it was a surprise. I really liked that we got a backstory in the gems, though. I don't think we necessarily needed it, but I really appreciated having it. Like this deity had the gems, would give them to mortals to see how well they would do. Like I see someone who is like so omnipresent, not really understanding what a bad idea that obviously is. Just being like, we'll see how it goes. 10,000 years, let's see. And then be like, oh, okay, yeah, that wasn't great. This is the first person who's actually passed my test essentially in an exorbitantly long amount of time, respectively. So, I mean, I think that's cool. It's cool to see that that's been the backstory for these gemstones the entire time. I do still wonder why it was in the shape of a music box, but it was the god's choice, I guess. That's fine. Or maybe like the gemstones were given to the new ancestors a long time ago and they like fit it into a music box and figured out how to use that to make a portal. Maybe like that was a power they unlocked on their own versus the gemstones just being like this raw form of power.
Like the ancestors made the music box.
Yeah, like maybe that was never intended when the deity provided them the stones, but they kind of manufactured that and it had the ability, and then they used that for their own purpose. Like it's all cool. And I see that all connecting now, and I like thinking about it that way.
I also appreciate that they didn't give it to the human race, because we all know how that would have ended.
I know. Give it to the newts and frogs and toads. Maybe they'll fare better, but yeah, probably not.
But then Anne actually proves me wrong, because she's a human and she did the thing.
I think it just depends on the person, whether they be human or amphibian. Then, yeah.
Just a pure-hearted soul.
I loved it though. I love the clone thing so much because it leaves that weight of her decision in there.
I did not know how to feel at first, and after we've had almost 24 hours to think it over, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I like it. It's spooky on a level. The same way when like OG Steven died in season 1. That was spooky.
Oh my god.
I love that stuff. I think it's so good. Like those are decisions that the show makes you can never take back, and it just adds to the everything.
If Anne said arrivederci while she died, I would
How
do you say goodbye in Thai?
Well, for further Steven Universe references, Anne, when she's all pale and cracked, is really close to some like pearls in that show. So,
I think the original Steven like melts away, doesn't he? It's
the fact that
similar.
she turned into leaves. I'm like, I don't know if I am making up this headcanon. I'm pretty sure I'm not. It has to have been on the internet that like Anne is a reincarnated, different dimension version of Leaf. Because she has like the same part, and she turns into leaves when she dies. Maybe I just made that connection. Oh my god, mind explosion!
That's food for thought. Yeah.
In a world where there is a god overseeing multiverses, I guess there could be reincarnation. We can just add that into soup.
Yeah, I mean, he did. The god did throw her back down and said, "Live your life." So karma.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say like the clone part, I'm actually fine with because I think they like kind of whisk it away. Like you're the same man, pretty much, and it's like I can accept that. Like I've seen some people get really hung up on that, like and die. But it's like it's. You kind of wash it away.
She did and she didn't. Like the spirit of her lives on, but is certainly not the same body. That's
right.
all.
Right. Now, on the other hand, the Guardian showing up and like I'm pretty sure there had not been a clear mention of like an overseeing deity of governing these stones. Like it's kind of like it was always talked about like the stones have just always been around, but like there's never really talk of that. So like that did throw me for a loop. In the moment watching live, I was just rolling with it. I was like, okay, this is weird. I love it, right? Like thinking about it a little more, I can see the complaints and like I can like sort of get it. But at the same time, like the prophecy side of the show, it was always like adding extra details over the course, and like the meaning of stuff was always a little hazy to the point where like even like Anne and Sasha's understanding of it changed a couple of times, even to the point where like Mother Ohm was talking about it to them, like gave them a different interpretation from what we had been theorizing. So like I think the fact that the mythology was always kind of shifting has helped me to come a little bit more to terms with this existing and like a bit bailing Anne out. And I think you're Michelle, you're right. Like the sacrifice that Anne makes, I feel like fits with the overall theme of like Anne coming into her own and like making being able to make those kind of tough decisions. Whereas like earlier on the show, there's no way she would be in a mental position to do that kind of thing. So like that fits. So then like having God show up to like reward her for that, like I can accept it, but I can also see at least a little bit of the complaint from some people. But I think that just kind of goes with the lore side of Amphibia, like kind of always being a little shifty as the season 3 went on.
I think maybe it's also the lore being shifty could just be because so much of the lore is word of mouth, and the amphibian's perspective of what's happening could have changed over time, right? Like the deity knows the ultimate truth of their intention. Amphibians don't know. And over like decades and eons, like maybe the story has evolved to a place where like they don't know whatever the ultimate truth was anymore. Like Mother Ohm know because she is ancient and she's underground and not talking to anybody until season 3 of the show. Whereas like Andrias's lineage, like they have a very different perspective on the box. And I know we haven't talked about the Core and the King episode, but I mean the fact that it was so normal to be using the music box to conquer, and everyone was really fine with that for so long. I mean, I think that's the case, which is like word of mouth. Like, yeah, we have this; it's here. It must be to invade other people. That must be what it's for inherently. But no, it's not, and we know that in context now. But I could just see the purpose of the music box changing over time, because nobody really knows the full story. No one really wrote it down except for Mother Ohm,
Yeah. one other thing from this whole God sequence is the fact that like Domino is used as a representation. There was a line
Oh my
earlier on
god.
the show where
The seating
Anne
of this show is insane.
Anne was, I think she was sedated because she went to the dentist or
She got
something.
the happy drugs to get her teeth fixed. Yeah.
Yeah, and so she's just like talking to Hop Hop like Domino is the alpha and the omega or something. It's like,
She's
well,
an interdimensional being that defies the laws of time and space.
Hop Pop has the most smooshed, amazing animated face in that scene. I just want to point out, he looks so insane.
Yeah, so there was that seating. Also, some people have found that there was a painting on Anne's on the wall of Anne's room at some point that was very similar to the dream world that she ends up at,
which is insane.
So like that, so it's always fun to like look back at the Easter eggs that were being hidden about all this.
Can you believe that a 13-year-old is going to become God when she dies?
Oh, she's going to be very old when she dies, though, so it'll be okay.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair.
She got her job at 13. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Not to say that working at an aquarium is like a bad job necessarily, but I wonder if it's like purposefully like I know I'm gonna be God, so like I just want to find like the most normal job possible and like just enjoy human life like as least stressfully as possible.
Following her passions versus the job that'll give her money. I stand her for that. It's relatable.
They can make a lot of money. Zoologists.
Yeah, I have no clue what that career path. Maybe it's a lot of work, but you know,
it's biology, so they definitely make a lot of money.
It's just fun to think about, like if you knew that you were going to be a god, like how would that influence your decisions in life?
God, I would not do anything.
So yeah, we talked. You mentioned the core and the king, Michelle, and like that. We our previous talk about Amphibia, that episode had not come out yet. So pretty much in all that time, we've gotten the Andrias backstory, we've gotten the Andrias, fight with Anne, and we've gotten the Andrias kind of redemption. So like to the point where like in the epilogue, we see him peacefully farming, and we've seen him like crush the core, that little crown thing, giving a line of standing up to you, mirroring Anne talking to Sasha in the
reunion.
Season 1.
Let's go.
So I am curious to hear your thoughts on, like, Andrias has been the main villain of this show for the second half of the show, pretty much. So how do you all feel about the way that Andrias' story was wrapped up here? Does that feel satisfying or right, the way to go, Michelle?
I think, and I feel bad because Matt gave so many interviews the past like 2 weeks. But one of them, a really insightful one, pointed out how Anne was mirroring Andrias in terms of being somebody who grew up kind of going with the flow and just accepting, what they're told. And that very much was his story. I feel like seeing Andrias's backstory and where he ended up, like the biggest difference between him and Anne, honestly, was just like Anne met the right people at the right time, and he had a not great family telling him the exact opposite of the things that were going to make him happy in life, it turns out. So he had bad influences. She ended up finding some really good influences in the Planters, and that ended up making all the difference in their formative young, not quite young adult, but like teen years, we'll say. And I love that because I feel like that's very understandable. Like there's so many different ways your life path can go, but it really depends on like the people you meet and how you are influenced at moments that are kind of pivotal in your life. And I think if Anne hadn't met Sprig and Hop Hop and Polly, she could have been a very different, much less good version of herself. And I think that's essentially what ended up happening to Andrias, right? He like doubled down with his family. He cut off his friends, ripped divorce trio. Like they had a good thing going. And like that has remained, we know now, his biggest regret in life was losing his two friends, to the point where one letter from Leaf kind of explaining what happened and the fact that she still loves him and cares about him and wants him to be happy after all this time is what broke him and made him finally turn against his family in the core. I mean, again, it's like Sprig and Anne. It's like he just needed that one good influence at that time to really put things in perspective and make a healthy choice for him. And yeah, it came like after 1,000 years, which is not the best look, honestly. But I mean, he still made the choice eventually, and I do think that's worth something. I mean, I wish he hadn't like totally destroyed Utopia and Wartwood, and but like the replanting is good, and he's taking time to figure himself out. And I know everyone, like, I don't want to compare this too much to Steven because this is his own show, and it'll be.
But there's a parallel here, yeah.
I personally think it is better and more constructive if you have like a villainous force that decides to repair their damage. I think that is more of a net positive than if they just died. Like, personally, I think that does more for the world in a positive way than if they just cease to exist. So I appreciated that he was planting seeds and trying to fix stuff, because it is like he did a lot of damage, and that doesn't mean that he's forgiven for anything. But I think in general, it's a good gesture, and that in of itself still means something. So I feel pretty okay. I liked the backstory. I don't think we needed a ton more than that. I feel like when we finally got that flashback episode, it put a lot of pieces into place, made a lot like similar with Marcy. Like, we had to wait so long to get Marcy backstory, but once we got it, like, so much more about the dynamic made sense and where she was coming from. I think that's true with Andrias. Like, that's why I'm gonna say again, Spranne's the most important relationship. There's a reason Andrias wanted to throw Sprig out that window in True Colors, because he was like the most he was the most unmorally compromised friend at that point, because both Sasha and Marcy had kind of betrayed Anne in that moment, and Sprig is the only one who hadn't. But like, I feel like he also just hated that bond because it reminded him of his old friendship, and that was the biggest regret in his life. But yeah, I would be happy if he could move on and have a new chapter in his life. He kind of seems like he's also immortal, ? Like, he's a robot cyborg.
That's the
What
thing.
the heck?
I'm wondering when he's gonna die, because he's over 1,000 years old, and I don't know if he's having still the technology keep him alive. Also, why would you want to live that long?
I think maybe he'll just choose when he's ready, and then he'll be like, okay, it's today, it's my last day, let's have a party. Like The Good Place, he'll just decide when he's ready. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
And then he'll be done on his own time.
He'll have successfully grown a really big tree, and I'll be like, I'm gonna bury myself here
I
or
fixed
something.
Everything now.
Yeah.
I can die.
No, I think that's a pretty good read of connecting Andrias to Anne's story, and to the point where Anne's speech was to the planters in All In, was like talking about maybe I didn't love myself enough, and like that was contributing to me making some bad decisions early on.
Yeah.
And then later Anne calls Andrias out about like not really like loving himself and shutting himself off. So like the connection is definitely being made there in the episode, and then of course like Leaf's letter to Andrias is also talking about change, which is a big thing that Anne is stressing for the rest of the finale. So the fact that we're connecting that to Andrias too, like, you gotta accept change and roll with it, is just it all ended up fitting pretty well of just like the similar themes that they're both dealing with. Aly, I don't know if you have anything to add on the Andrias topic.
I think I'm a little upset that he is supposedly not a prisoner. I think he should still have like some consequence to his actions, but other than that, I agree with what you guys were saying. I think it was handled really well. I also agree with Michelle that it's better that they don't die and that they live with the consequences of their actions, even if they don't like pay a certain price for it. I enjoyed it a lot. I also liked his last line. It hit well.
What was his last line?
Good luck, kiddo. Something like to Marcy, right? When they're saying goodbye.
Yeah. He's like he can't look Marcy in the eye.
Oh no.
But then she's
too nice.
Yeah.
He can't look her in the eye until she initiates contact, and he's like, "Oh,
Still meant
see you later, space cowboy."
I just gotta point out when we see Andrias in the the flash forward when Aly saw him, the first thing she said was like, "Oh, those changed. Does that mean he's in prison?"
I wanted
Maybe it's like a hot topic thing. Like it's his fling, but like maybe he is in prison in those days.
I assumed he was a prisoner also because it seemed like he was doing like hashtag community service, but I guess he was just planting for fun because the chains are not connected to anything. You were right. It's just
we're hot topic
emo
bling.
kid bling. He has a chain wallet.
Through that phase finally. Now that his dad's gone, he can just be himself.
I'm really like I love that parallel with Anne and Sasha and Andrias and his father, but I'm also the whole time like we saw him with Darcy and even with his dad. I was thinking, you really want to join the Corps?
I know his
the
dad
most
sounds
miserable experience.
So creepy. He's like,
first of all, being immortal.
No.
Second of all, being immortal. Second of all, being immortal and having to live with your abusive father for the rest of your life.
Sure.
Forever.
That's not fun.
Why would you ever? It took him that long to stand up to him. He was really traumatized. I understand. I was just like, damn.
I guess it's also the pressure of like the lineage, right? Like that
absolutely,
holds a lot of weight, like generations upon generations.
Mm-hmm. That pressure.
And since we hadn't talked about the Core and the King, any Leaf or Beryl thoughts?
I wish they weren't dead.
They were so cute all together. I love
so
Beryl.
Bad for Beryl. I feel so bad for him.
He didn't know what was going on. He's hearing one thing from his husband. He's hearing another thing from his wife. He's trying to pick sides. It's confusing.
Big third wheel energy.
Yeah, big third wheel energy from Beryl.
Berylkin.
Seeing Leaf originate the planter hunting dance and Andrias blushing while watching it.
Here's the thing. When he commissions that painting, he has himself just full on staring at her and smiling in the painting, and I lost it because that's so unsubtle, sir.
Are you gonna, Michelle, I want to hear you talk. How do you feel about Leaf marrying a himbo? I remember you were like, she's thinking of Andrias the whole time, and I was like, wait,
no, Def. I mean, she's like, you're everything Andrias isn't, so I definitely want to marry you. You're safe and uncomplicated. No, I mean, I love that for her. She wants to be the alpha in the relationship. He seems like a perfectly nice guy.
Wow.
He's happy to sit on the porch and look at stars and whatever. I mean, I love that she like flipped her P to an L, or
that
opposite
was so
of that.
good.
Her L to a P, yeah.
So satisfying. Like I know we had all theorized as soon as Marcy in the Gates was like, "Oh, Sprig, you're an interesting color." It's like, "Oh, that's gonna be important." And then as soon as we knew about Leaf, it was like, "That's gotta be an ancestor." But the fact that actually ended up happening, and when we got the backstory, it didn't seem like out of literal nowhere. It actually made kind of a sense in a way. And it made sense for Hop Pop to have that book about the Calamity Box. Like, Leaf definitely wrote that book. So it actually, like, I feel like that really paid off in a really spectacular way. So I'm very happy about that connection.
Me too. I had hoped the book would come back in, like, a very important way, because they were emphasizing it from the beginning of the series.
I mean, she could have clarified, but she just wrote, "Danger, don't use it. It's bad."
Well, some people...
Specific.
You all don't need to know why it's dangerous. Just don't do it.
Bad news bears.
So I think
just
with
so much to talk about.
Well, I was gonna say with the Andrias topic covered, I think we've covered all like the serious stuff. Like, there's honestly a lot of like fun stuff on the finale that we have not talked about. So I guess like we have been talking for an hour already, so we can begin wrapping up. But like, in terms of like just something that like really stood out to you as like a fun time, or something that like stood out to you that we haven't talked about at all yet. Feel free to highlight that now. Michelle, is there anything that's immediately coming to mind?
When Polly upgraded Frobo into that insane, like pink, like purple, like that's the most anime, like, but like I love the color choice because it's like Polly, so of course it's gonna be a little pink. I just love that for Frobo. It's such a glow up. He looks so good. I'm glad he has a full body, even though he was super cute as a car.
This just reminded me about the herons. We have to talk about the herons.
God, the trauma hair.
The fact that they're the same ones that killed their parents.
Everything comes back in this show. It's so
they really like
good.
They have the thing about the show that really surprises me, and it continued to while I was watching it. It's like the themes and like even just stories, but mostly themes of the show, like hit so many characters in different ways, and they all come back together. And it's something like this that's like actually insane that you did it, and it works so well. It was I didn't expect it. I remember we were watching. I think Michelle, you were like, "What if it's the ones that killed their parents?" And I was like,
Yeah. And then we find out
no, and then it literally was.
Well, it seemed insane in the moment, but then when that was used so that they could get closure on their own terms, like that was so narratively satisfying. And the fact that they defeated them not with violence, but with like an ancient heirloom, like passed down for generations hunting dance. Like I love that they like hypnotize them. They don't have to like kill them off to make their point and to like handle that in their own way. Like that,
they used it to their advantage. They were able to control them.
Yeah.
God, them doing that together as a family, the dance, like got me weirdly emotional.
Oh no, the part that made me cry, like out of all this, was in All In, when they're like, we're frozen in trauma, we can't do anything about the herons, which makes sense. And then when they go after the Boon Choi parents, they're like, wait a minute, you're gonna take away like the only family we have left? Like that broke me. That was so raw.
It's very good.
What were you gonna say though, Alex?
Oh no! I was just talking about the planter dance, so it felt pretty good. Aly, is there any big moments that you wanna point out here?
Oh man, we touched on Sasha because she's perfect and I love her. I mean, Michelle I think she wrote this note on Anne taking more leadership and just coming into her own. We definitely talked a lot about Anne. I just love her so much. We talked about Grimes' arm. I'm just going through the outline.
While you're looking, of all the sequences, one that was pretty quick, but I really liked was the K-pop fight sequence in All In. The Blackpink showing up there. I really wish it was more than like 20 seconds worth of it, but it was really cool to see it timed up with Anne like reactivating her powers and the transition to the Sasha Darcy fights at the end of that.
Oh my god!
So like that was just, like that was great. Also, beginning of the end, we have not really talked about that episode, but like the main standout there was the Dance Dance Revolution sequence with Sasha and Anne are.
So
or Evangelion.
So insane.
Sasha and Shippers won that day.
They did. They literally did.
Oh, we have to talk about Domino too, because she came back in the biggest way.
Can we talk about how she has 6 children and one of them looks like Wally and he finds a little hat for it so they can match.
Wally Jr.
Matches him as an accordion. He makes this like meow sound. I just like the humor in the show is so amazing. I was
so good.
My mind during that. It was so good.
I'm really gonna miss the humor. One of the biggest things I'm gonna miss from the show is the jokes. They always landed. And it was like, so hard.
The cryptocurrency thing, and then like LA. It's so good.
It's just typical America.
Typical 2020 energy.
Corn the King. Yeah, the Root of Evil was fine. Newts and Tights was fine. That was very
Newts and Tights made me very uncomfortable with its sexual energy.
Well, it was Tritonio that hot?
But then, you say this, but then you go off on how Andrias is hot, and I don't know how to feel.
Okay, that was different. No one can look at the don't stop on my account moment and not question everything.
I can, I do.
He like
that was a smooth delivery, Aly. I can't.
Had one shoulder and picked it up with the other.
It's just Keith David. He's the attractive part.
I mean, that is 80% of it, but also like, and
the other 20% is being a scaly. I understand.
Yes.
What else? There's just so much. I feel like we can't. I'm still emotional about everything, and just going back and forth with each of these episodes is so much.
One minor thing I want to bring up is that Anne's parents do show up in All In, but they don't show up in The Hardest Thing. So it felt a little strange to not give them like a farewell kind of moment. But I don't know, that just stood out to me. Also, RuPaul was hanging around with them. But RuPaul's the one to find out that the letter has letters on it.
Yeah, that
so-
was the twist I never saw coming. That RuPaul was going to be that important to the plot this late in the game.
Also, as we've gotten these finale episodes, the end credit sequences have just been very nice. The twists they've been giving on them. Beginning of the end had
You're twisting my arm with your...
when you said they were nice, I'm like, Alex, what?
Well, they were well. They were well executed in how emotionally painful they
yeah,
were.
there you go.
You had Marcy watching her Lord of the Rings parody alone. You had the music bots playing the end credits theme really creepily as the movie
that was super
approaching.
good.
And then, of course, with this finale, you had
the extended
credits, seeing little shots of Amphibia, and then
that last
final shot
destroyed me.
Of them recreating the BFF pictures as adults, and you have the colored drinks reflecting their gem colors.
I thought for a minute you were going to say their genders.
Wow.
Yes, the three genders.
The three genders, pink, blue, and green.
Blue, and green.
But, yeah, so I think with that, we're going to begin wrapping up. I don't know if this is the right time to do, like, Amphibia in memoriam. It's like,
God.
You know, final words you want. Obviously, we'll talk about Amphibia again.
We'll be crying about this for forever.
Yeah, well, we'll reminisce about the show a lot, but I guess just like final thoughts on like what you feel about the show overall, or anything else you want to get out there before we sign off. Aly, anything you want to say?
I don't feel safe. I feel very safe, mood. Honestly. No, just this. I think I mean, I don't want to end on a complaint, but I feel like the only thing that would have made this finale better, it did feel a little rushed, but like not completely, because I mean, you can't really complain when you're given 30 minutes. But I think if they switched kind of the runtimes with All In and The Hardest Thing, I think it might have felt a little. Not that it didn't feel bad, but I think the pacing felt a little off, at least with the last episode. It just felt like we needed more than 30 minutes. But the overall pacing of the show was just done so well. Like I mentioned before, I'm impressed with how like every character got a chance to shine and would come back in a really important way in the end. I didn't really expect it from this show, especially. And I have to say, I'm glad you guys convinced me to watch it. And I think like your reasoning was like the humor, and B, the heart of it was like Anne and Sprig's relationship. And I'm going to carry that with me forever. Because I have a lot of friends who like, not that I can't talk to them, but like who are like maybe in a different country and I don't talk to them and I haven't seen them in years, but we're always going to have that connection, and it hurts so good. And I love this show, and thank you guys for convincing me to watch it. I also hate you for it, but it was a very good decision. And thank you, Matt Braley, and everyone who's worked on the show.
Watching season 3 with you guys live, like I'm like shook that we were able to make that work remote for what, a year?
God, yeah.
Has it been a year since it started? It might have been. Like that was one of the best parts of COVID so far, and I hope we can find other shows to keep doing that with. But like, oh man, because I remember starting out with season 1, I was just watching that alone, and I would have all these emotions.
God,
well, not to begin with. It was a fun show for a while. You just have, you feel happy, but when the plots start to come in, like, yeah.
And if I watched season 3, like the finale by myself, I would not be able to. Like, I would be crying in a corner right now.
It's a good show to watch with other people. I think it's a very good bonding experience.
It's a very good friendship show.
Yeah.
Like, change and friendship are the themes for me.
Yeah, season 3B, Escape to Amphibia, began March 19th. They're in May 15th now. So we've had
but we were watching season
2 months.
3A.
Yeah, we were watching season 3A too.
In the pandemic.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that was back in October and November of last year. But yeah, I mean, I have definitely valued the watching experience with you two too. It's been nice to have a show again. One thing I would want to point out: this was a weekly show.
Weekly is good.
Built up hype over the course of the end of the season.
If
Maybe
they dumped
keep doing
everything
that, other shows,
all at once,
please.
It would have been so bad. Like it wouldn't have been bad, but it would not have been anywhere near the same experience emotionally watching. It's like you gotta wait and see how things build. Don't stop doing that.
Yeah, so I really liked that experience of like being able to like follow the course of the season, and that seeing it get more dramatic over time, but also yeah, like the fact that this was a show that always kept the comedy going, but also knew when to like pull back for the emotional moments. Like that's always a hard balance to try striking with any show, especially when aimed towards younger audiences. So the fact that Amphibia was able to do that so well so often is a treasure to find. And yeah, just like all the credit to like the whole crew that worked on this.
Yes.
Matt Braley and then all the storyboarders, like so many more people that I follow on Twitter than I used to because they worked on Amphibia.
Everyone's so talented.
Yeah, so please seek those people out if you want more Amphibia content, because I'm a decent chunk of them will be putting out more fan art, I'm sure.
I'm sending you guys Sasha and fan art as we speak.
Bless, thank you. Good. I always want to see more.
Yeah, just Amphibia. It was an emotional experience, a stronger one than I have had in a long time from a finale. And it's definitely a show, especially like season 1 is just like a good background rewatch, like where I feel comfy enough with it that like I know it well enough, but also like it's funny enough that I can still laugh at the jokes.
Yes.
If I hear them out of earshot. So just like this is going to be one of my like go-to comfort shows, I feel, for a while here.
Guess who's getting an Amphibia tattoo? Probably.
Oh, really?
I'm gonna think it's going on the list. I just have to come up with an idea, but I'm doing it.
You should do Sasha's swords. That's a classic.
That
always looks good.
Reading my mind. I don't appreciate it. But I want to incorporate Sprig and Anne into there somewhere.
Aww.
Yeah, the dual swords is the official buy tattoo.
I mean, come on.
It literally is.
I don't know how to use swords, so I just need a tattoo of them till I can pay for lessons.
So yeah, I think with that we are going to end for today. Thanks to anyone who's been listening through, and if for some reason you've been listening to this and have not watched Amphibia,
you have issues.
Well, yeah, but also we hope that this discussion of like how deep the themes go maybe convinces you to give it a try, because it was a really rewarding experience for all of us here.
Yes.
So with that, we're gonna sign off here. You can find out more about the Overly Animated podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all of our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Kent. And thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, Steve, Michael, and Phonician. And in addition to Overly Animated, you can go find our previous Amphibia episodes on Amvidia on YouTube. That's AMVIDIA. But yeah, we will probably talk about Amphibia again at some point, or we'll talk about other shows that catch our interest in the future. But yeah, just goodbye, Amphibia, and thanks for all the memories. Thanks for all the emotions. And as Anne said, sometimes you have to let things go, but you'd be surprised when it makes its way back to you. So we'll see how that ends up happening for Amphibia.
Oh God.
So till next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.